The battle between AI and crypto has already begun, and it's about one thing: global power. Today's guest is one of the key architects shaping that shift from inside the institutional world. Stephen Mackintosh is the Chief Investment Officer of SUI Group, the NASDAQ-listed digital asset company shaping what aims to become the SUI Bank. He was an early AI founder out of the University College London, built language-driven tools that helped major banks process and understand financial data, and backed Solana long before it became a global powerhouse. At SUI Group, he leads the institutional strategy behind SUI's treasury and long-term vision, work that positions him at the center of one of the fastest moving shifts in global digital finance. Institutions look to him for direction as they evaluate where SUI fits in the future financial landscape. His perspective on AI, agents, and global power offers a view very few people get to hear.
AI is like literally the end game.
Yep.
AI is power, power is money, and power is geopolitics, and like all routes lead to AI.
That's the opening shot in a financial war that's already begun. And right now, the institutions are finally stepping in.
Interesting time that we're in 2025, not least because of the institutional adoption of crypto. Like that is real. Like I am the manifestation of that, right? With SUIG. We could not have done that 2 years ago.
He's not talking theory, guys. He's showing how the next layer of capital and intelligence are merging in real time.
We have the SUI stack, and the SUI stack together as a kind of composable, holistic software offering is what will allow agents to flourish, but more importantly, to conduct safely, where we pass the trust boundary, and they can really be scaled to handle probably trillions of stablecoin payments in the future.
That's the new architecture for power. Trillions in motion across networks that think for themselves, which is crazy.
I don't think the throne for who is the Google of finance has been won yet.
This is Stephen Mackintosh, a veteran of both AI and crypto, explaining how the next trillion-dollar empire will rise. And again, remember, nothing in this video is financial advice. It's for educational purposes only. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's bring Stephen onto the stage. Steve, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I actually watched the entire episode with Rand from Crypto Banter, and that was really well done. So good props to both of you guys. And we'll cover some of those issues as well. But I think because I am a builder, I have been following the whole story of, ever since, those teams were working for, DM and Project Libra. I know a lot about how the story of how that ended and what resulted from it. And when we thought about building a new DApp or whatever, or just even why a reason maybe I thought that, the Move language would be something quite unique, was because I was always trying to think about, what do big institutional companies that either manage money or need trust or whatever, Solidity has had a lot of problems. I think that, they're working to kind of upgrade the whole language to make it more secure, but it's still like the first smart contract language that was invented by a small team that was also trying to invent not just the smart contract language, but like the logic of smart contracts and, kind of these utility chains and a new type of economic model. And so there's a lot that they're working on versus, someone like the Meta team, where a very highly specialized and super intelligent team within that department within that team, like Sam, we're focused strictly on going in and taking a good look at all the other languages for blockchain and payments, deeply understand them, figure out if any of those were suitable for what they wanted to do. And the story that I was told is that they weren't. And so they figured that they should invent a new language, a different logic that they believe could scale and be suitable for, all the kinds of use cases that we might imagine, over the next decades, that could also be safe enough for people to trust to put their entire portfolios on and transfer tons and tons of value, have vaults that have tons of money in there, and do unique kinds of features and transactions using the move and these things. So, but I want to get, because you obviously were an early investor in SUI. You created SUIG, which is the SUI DAT treasury company. And, the consensus from everyone else so far, most other people, have been, let's do a Bitcoin strategy, let's do an Ethereum strategy, let's do a Solana strategy. And you chose to go all in on SUI. So maybe you could just tell me from your perspective, kind of like compared to kind of what I just said, how did you first learn about the SUI ecosystem? What got you interested? What convinced you after learning about what kinds of things gave you more conviction and eventually put you here where you are today, where basically your whole business rides on success of that team?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for the introduction, and great to be here. I think it's interesting you started with Ethereum and Solidity, right? I think there's been great work done over the past number of years by smart thinkers, entrepreneurs, cryptographers, right? But ultimately, we have seen progress, and that's not to kind of take part in the tribalism sometimes that occurs on Twitter, where it's like a lot of finger poking. Like, I think what the Ethereum team implemented with Solidity was really ambitious and really profound, right? But ultimately, it's still played with re-entrancy attacks. Like, look at what's happened recently in the past few weeks. There's just tons of exploits happening all the time still in that ecosystem in the EVM world. I think Solana introduced the high performance blockchain meta, which is incredible, and I think that Anatoly deserves like maximum credit. And I really believe in his view of the world, which is like optimization at the hardware level as well. If you look at the narrative around AI, it's all about power, right? It's about energy, and that energy is used in these data centers to compete on performance for these models. I mean, really, if you think about your experience with Gemini or Grok or ChatGPT, and you now have these kind of choices, right? Which is like on ChatGPT, it's like ChatGPT fast, where it gives you instant responses, or thinks harder, which takes a few minutes, or research, which takes quite a while. Like, ultimately, if you could deliver that research answer within a second, that I would think would drive still exponential growth in its customer base, because the speed, the delivery of that information is everything, right? That's the competition right now in AI. And if you kind of go back to what I was just talking about with blockchains, we need the same thing in the crypto industry. We need high performance. We need high throughput, and we need systems that can scale for the new use cases of the future. And I think it's a very interesting time that we're in 2025, not least because of the institutional adoption of crypto. Like, that is real. Like, I am the manifestation of that, right? With SUIG, we could not have done that 2 years ago. That we could not have done a year ago. The administration and the regulatory environment has changed fundamentally, and institutions, whether it's long-term capital like Fidelity, or multi-strat hedge funds or wealth managers, they are becoming much more comfortable, and they are investing in crypto-related equities, but also trying to get more interested in the actual layer one blockchains themselves and more educated. And that's one part of 2025. The other part is this kind of explosion of interest in agentic commerce and agentic payments.
For sure.
I think that really is, one of the killer use cases for crypto, and one of the killer use cases for SUI. I feel like SUI was designed to bring us into the agentic future. I think it's probably the most well-suited ecosystem for a number of reasons. Number one, they have a high throughput blockchain, yes. And I know I've spoken about this quite, a lot in different kind of media appearances, but I really do believe, the fundamental distinction between an object-oriented blockchain and an account-based blockchain, like you see in Ethereum, Solana, and Avalanche, is really competitive and really different and differentiated, because it allows for a network like SUI to just handle a different type of complexity of transactions. What's analogous to an account-based model? Well, I kind of use this, this kind of metaphor, which is, imagine it's Black Friday and everyone has to settle through one till. Imagine how long it would take to ring the till for all those transactions. Whereas with SUI and its object-oriented approach, every object, every agent can have its own till in parallel. You can have millions of tills, billions of tills if you want. And if you think about the agentic future, this is kind of like an amorphous, ambiguous concept for many people, but I'll break it down in simple terms. It's agents taking actions for you and conducting micropayments in many different areas of the internet. And the scale of those micropayments is like several orders of magnitude more than we have today. And that type of complexity and that type of state is probably too much for any of the account-based blockchains, in my opinion. And in walks SUI with its object-oriented approach. But it's not just the blockchain that you need. I really believe that what SUI has been working on over the past 2 years, what is kind of called the SUI stack, is fundamental for us crossing the trust boundary with these agents. You need to have confidence that the agents can act autonomously, that they can have verifiability, that they can have maybe encryption of certain kind of sensitive data, that they can have attestation, and that information can be stored somewhere. And so, if you kind of reverse engineer all those kind of feature sets, you get Walrus, which is decentralized programmable storage. You get Nautilus, which is verified, off-chain compute. You get Seal, which is secrets management and key management. And then you get something like ZK Login, which allows allows the agent rather to log in with your Google credentials. And all of those components, those features, those products, if you will, they are akin to what we saw with Google and GCP, Amazon with AWS, Microsoft with Azure, which is a stack. Those companies have cloud stacks, which includes, Kubernetes and querying and compute and storage. We have the SUI stack, and the SUI stack together as a kind of composable, holistic software offering is what will allow agents to flourish, but more importantly, to conduct safely, where we pass the trust boundary, and they can really be scaled to handle probably trillions of stablecoin payments in the future. We need both the scale and the guardrails in place, and I think that's what SUI delivers. So for me, when I kind of came across the team, in Palo Alto, I really felt like I'd found a kind of Google or an OpenAI for crypto. And that conviction has been borne out. Obviously, I was very interested at the time when I met them about their background. You mentioned it in the introduction. This was the team that was working on Libra. I can't think of any other blockchain team in the world or cryptographic research team in the world that was handling the task of releasing a stablecoin or a blockchain network to 3 billion users. Yeah. It's a pretty tough hurdle rate, right?
So and they were ready to go too.
Yeah, and when a team like that kind of comes out into the wild, you really just have to back them based on their credentials, and it was a bet, right? I think, we have been really impressed with everything that's come out of that team. I think it's a very, very young network, 2.5 years old on mainnet. I've been impressed with the ecosystem companies that have been flourishing. I still think it's a young ecosystem, just to be honest. I think it's got a lot of catching up to do versus Solana and versus others. But that's okay. We need to kind of invite people in. And I think, as a whole, just going back to the kind of agentic, future that I mentioned, as an industry, we've got about 30,000 developers in blockchain, right? That's not enough. You've got millions of developers probably in AI these days. We really need to try and combine those worlds. And I think that the agentic payments, the agentic commerce future is just such a great home for SUI.
Yeah. A couple of things I want to add. Well, just on the last topic, I was actually talking to Christian from the foundation, I think just yesterday. But I've mentioned this before, I think, to them as well. And I made a post yesterday on X calling any developer who might be able to do this to reach out, and if they need some funding, I'll pay for it. But for a lot of projects that are maybe on Ethereum or L2s or anywhere else where their code is in EVM or Rust or whatever, or if you're on Cardano, which I don't think many people are, but okay, so you can take Haskell, whatever. But if you had an AI that could understand completely the logic of how your dApp works with all the smart contracts, and knew how to understand all that, and then rewrite it in Move, like SUI Move, or Rust for Solana, and back and forth, it would be very helpful, because a lot of projects that started building on ETH a couple of years ago, hasn't been the best market for them. They don't really want to sell that, so they don't just have. I think a lot of them can't bear even though they'd love to, just the switching cost seems almost impossible to be able to even if you have a pretty complex set of smart contracts and logic in the back end, to redo all of that and Move is a huge undertaking, a lot of cost, and the Move developers are going to be expensive and slim. But I love this idea for a few reasons. One is I know a couple of things that we're building, I'd love to have it be on SUI instead of Base or Ethereum. But also it's kind of the same idea. This thing that I was quite inspired by a long time ago, 10, 15 years ago, was something that, about these kind of sovereign states, like Liberland and others. I think Peter Thiel was working on something like this with a few other big guys. But imagine a world where, this is going to tie back to the SUI analogy, but imagine a world where we had a bunch of governments, and the way that the Seasteading Institute imagined doing it was, since there was no more available land, we could just build these seasteads that were fully fledged, small independent countries where people could choose to live there or choose to leave freely, come and go. And when you think about a world like that, and citizens or humans are no longer bound to the country purely by where they were born, which that's the luck of the lottery of life. It's if you're born in Pakistan, you got the horrible passport, or if you're born in somewhere in a war-torn Africa, that's where you grow up in. Also, if you're born in America, you just have, even if you want to leave, these taxes follow you. So everywhere has kind of pros and cons. But if we lived in a world where people had the right to choose which nation, sovereign nation state that they lived in, we would have a completely different type of mindset coming from the government. It would be competitive. And so instead of just them knowing that I have, in America's case, 330 million citizens who abide by the federal laws, and it's really difficult to leave us if you want, even if you wanted to. And then you can only be rich if you want to do it. You have to figure out how to get a passport to a new country. It's not easy. You have to exit tax of 50% of your assets, blah, blah, blah. So they kind of just assume that they got you locked here and you have no choice. And so it doesn't create a lot of incentive for the people to stay here. But if you had open borders and people could choose where they wanted to go, Imagine a world like that where these different nation states would be campaigning for sending out flyers and making commercials and having referral, like, come live at our place because we do this, this, and this, and this for our citizens. And, and then the other person says, no, come over here because we do this. It would just create a different mindset of the governance of that ecosystem that would make it more competitor and make it more appealing to different builders and participants. Like one of the things I was talking to the SUI team about was like, one of the things that I think Sonic has done well, even though they're doing a lot of other things not so well, but they have like a 99% rebate on the fees that your app created from people using your dApp on that blockchain. So it's a lot of developer incentive there for them to be able to make extra money if they have success on the platform. I think that's a good idea. But anyway, I just wanted to, that was one of them. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I went to the first network state conferences with Balaji, right? So I've kind of listened to.
Was it in Singapore or was there one before that?
There was one in Amsterdam and one in Singapore, right? I can't remember which one was first, but I went to both. But yeah, I've listened to a lot of that stuff, and it's kind of interesting. I'd just say, like, in a very simple way, for Europeans at least, if you want to move to somewhere that's progressive and encourages business, just move to the UAE. Like, I moved there 2 years ago, and it's probably one of the only places in the world that's got like real regional growth in the next 5 to 10 years. It's a corridor for the world. I've lived in Hong Kong, I've lived in London, I've lived in New York. What's great about those big cities is that they do have kind of footfall passing through all the time. You can always host people. You can always like meet people from different parts of the world who want to do business in that region. Right. And the UAE's got that. It's like a magnet for capital, for entrepreneurship. I don't think it's got, tons of developers yet. So that's one of the things the country's working on, is making it, attractive for developers to be based there. But I would say that, that's a very interesting a place if you want to focus on building, businesses and making money, right? I'm here in New York at the moment, and, I think it was the mayoral election yesterday, and, the city is just like extremely emotional on both sides about politics. The West is ultimately inundated with politics, right? Whether you choose to be a part of it or not, if you live in these Western countries, you are part of like the political psychology. So personally, I kind of opted out of that and moved to the UAE 2 years ago. Yeah. So that's all I'd have to say on that.
Yeah, I guess my long-winded analogy would just, again, if we had a way to compile our code and in Solidity into Move or Solana and back and forth, I think it can bring a lot of development to SUI. I know like handfuls or multiple handfuls of dApps and builders that would love to go over to SUI if it was easier to do.
What I would say to you on that point is that, look, in the future, I think that the ability for these kind of LLMs to do more than just vibe coding will be realized. I think we are, still in the exponential kind of progress curve for these models. And so, yeah, I think it might be easier to kind of port over a concept from EVM to move in the future. But I still think like we still need to recruit developers. Really great developers, don't require vibe coding to win. And AI has like an incredible, roster of engineers and researchers that are, itching to build something when they come out of university, whether it's, MIT, Stanford, Cambridge, UCL, wherever, right? And we need to attract those individuals to come and build in our ecosystem. That's what the fight's about.
Yeah. All right, guys. Now, real quick, just a quick break. You worked hard to protect your crypto and your data. Guys, said this before, don't be a dum-dum and let one bad click undo it. NordVPN is the first line of defense. It hides your IP, encrypts your data, and keeps you one step ahead of scammers and trackers. And here's a pro tip. Literally, I showed you guys when I did it before on a video. I saved over $300 on my last trip. Most people never realize they're being overcharged simply because where their IP location is or where they live. So guys, it's a no-brainer here. Protect your portfolio, unlock the full web wherever you are, and save while you're at it. There's a link in the description, guys, to get 4 free months and over 70% off. They cost less than a cup of coffee every single month, less than 1 cup for the entire month. How is that not so obvious? So don't wait for a hack or security breach or data brokers or whatever to reach you through leaked data, these kind of things. So guys, hit that link in the description to get up to 4 months free and over 70% off. Don't wait for the hack to learn the hard way. Use Nord like I do. Stay private, stay protected, and stay ahead. The other thing that I wanted to touch on too that we talked about a little bit earlier was the agentic world that we're coming into. And, one thing that I'd like you to touch on is, I forget exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines of like, SUI will be the blockchain that most like agentic frameworks and agentic payment lives on. But I think to maybe the viewers, that's not clear on just how big that means, because in my mind, every single large institution in the world will be having like a majority of their employees replaced by AI agents. They will have AI agents making important decisions within the organization. And these AI agents will be communicating with the other agents from JP Morgan and Chase and, UOB and whatever else. And so at least to me, it would seem that statement of saying, just finishing with, it'll be used for AI agents and that's it. I don't know if people comprehend that would be a strong driving factor for these huge institutions to consider, SUI versus, Ethereum or Solana or something else, because it's just going to have the whole stack that they need, including when they upgrade their whole entire company to, multi-agent frameworks and swarms and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the first thing is you've got to prove these things out. So I think the Google kind of announcement with AP2 was really, really helpful because they penciled, this really kind of thoughtful post on how agentic payments could flourish, and SUI was one of the partners. I think for us to really realize the potential of blockchains and of crypto, you've got to kind of think through like this one word, which is like programmability. This is like the new money of the internet, and it should be really programmable, and we should be able to kind of deliver experiences that we just haven't seen in our lifetimes through this programmability. I think in relation to proving to you to your listeners or to whomever is listening to try and bring this to life, I think the first thing is just crossing like the intent barrier, so to speak. We need to go from intent to action. That's the most important thing to focus on, and that can be evidenced in a consumer use case, I think, very easily. When we think through a target yield profile that a customer or a user wants, they might put into Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, I want 20-30% yield from the major altcoins like Hyperliquid, SUI, Solana, ETH, right? And it'll give you kind of 3 probably good summaries. It might even ask you to click one which you prefer the answer, so it kind of trains the model, but ultimately it won't take those actions for you. And to cross the Rubicon from intent to action is quite a complex space. You need a lot of coordination and you need a lot of trust. You need to pass the trust boundary. And that's where, when I talked before about like the different components of the SUI stack, Walrus, Nautilus, Seal, all coming together, that's really what you need to move across that Rubicon. And similarly, the way in which action is taken today in many use cases, and you mentioned enterprise use cases, and I'll just kind of expand on that for a few minutes. My previous company actually specialized in natural language processing. I started an AI company in 2015 at the UCL AI Research Lab alongside illustrious companies like DeepMind, and we ultimately sold that business to a New York Stock Exchange listed acquirer. And we focused on very sensitive enterprise data in investment banking, asset management, insurance, e-commerce. And a good example of that is, Bloomberg chats or emails in the front, middle, and back office. And what we were doing was, extracting the intent of people sending these messages, connecting it to the corresponding kind of structured data in the email or the Bloomberg chat, such as like the ISIN, the QSIP, the trade ID. And then, that would be made available as structured machine readable data in an API kind of JSON format that could be consumed by broader parts of the IT real estate in the enterprise. Think, downstream IT applications like Salesforce or ServiceNow, RPA, robotic process automation. But ultimately, those connections had to be configured. APIs don't just like magically speak to each other. There's a lot of software there that has to be created, right? They've got to be safe, they've got to be performant, secure, and they're pretty much permission pathways if you think about it like that. Unless you go into an event stream like Kafka, where it can be consumed then by other parts of your data lake, data warehouse. The reason why I use that kind of example is because, in the agentic web, what we're actually saying is like, I go from a request, and then an agent or multiple agents, maybe hundreds of agents that are economically empowered by stablecoins and wallets, go and take actions for me in different DeFi protocols or on blockchain protocols, dApps that are part of the open internet, right? And that's interesting because that, to me, is the right type of kind of proof points we need for how we can bring this agentic use case to life. I think, expecting, an investment bank like JP Morgan to use like SUI straight away now for agents is unlikely. Maybe they will use, parts of, the SUI's kind of stack for other use cases that are more kind of acute to its business interests, like stablecoins or tokenization, and different kind of focus areas like that. But what I would say is that, things like commerce, like in-game commerce, e-commerce, that we do every day on Amazon. Imagine like Black Friday is literally coming up this month, right? Imagine like, you could just enter into an LLM, like I want to buy all these different things, and you go away, you come back from your job at the end of the day, and it's been done for you. And all the deliveries have been sent in the mail and sent to your family members. Like, that's a very interesting problem to solve. And I think, SUI's kind of SUI stack is uniquely placed to solve for that, because it's a coordination layer, because it's programmable, because it has all of these very interesting pieces of software and products that really allow it to, take actions with verifiability, with security, with kind of attestation, all those kind of, those really important feature sets are what we need for agentic commerce to flourish. I think also, when we did SUIG, we raised obviously a lot of money from, Wall Street investors. We had like high frequency trading firms like Citadel invest in our company. And many of those firms, were very interested in learning about SUI's object-oriented model as well. Like, what does that mean for novel HFT algorithms that are on chain? What does it mean for creating new types of kind of monetary and alpha generating algorithms in DeFi strategies? And ultimately, I think that many of the HFT firms will become design partners with SUI in the next kind of year or two, same way that Jump identified Solana as a design, as a design partner to kind of co-create with, because SUI is opening up like a very new design space that firms just have not participated in. And I really believe that like the throne for who is the Google of finance in this new era hasn't been won yet. We're seeing great competition this year. We've seen, Tempo get get announced, right, with Stripe. I think Stripe's probably one of the best, if not the best, product organizations in the world. So when that comes on board, that's going to be super interesting. We've seen Plasma, stablecoin chains, which is really exciting. Obviously, Hyperliquid, who have created an incredible trading venue for many of kind of crypto's, whale traders, right? So we're seeing like really interesting, like competitive, forces in the market, but I don't think the throne for like who is the Google of finance has been won yet. So that's something also that I believe, SUI could play an interesting role in. And, ultimately these things do come together, agentic frameworks, kind of, autonomous bots running, trading, driving return, driving yield. That's a very exciting place to be in the middle of. And I think that, SUI's role as a coordination layer at the base of those new industries is why I'm investing here.
Can you just maybe double touch or double click on maybe a couple more examples that that would be relevant or obvious to my audience, who's mostly out there, exploring different dApps or DeFi things, or they're looking to different use cases of blockchain, is learning about it. Like I think a lot of people don't even know what an account-based system is like versus an object-oriented system. So is there a nice, easy, simple way to kind of explain that? And then are there a couple more I
think if you wrote, I don't want to kind of get proven wrong here on camera, but if you were to write into Gemini or Grok or ChatGPT, why is SUI's object-oriented model better suited for the agentic web than an account-based model? I think it'll probably give you some really interesting answers. And like I say, I hope I'm not wrong about what it says, but I would encourage all of your viewers, your listeners, to type in that query, that prompt. Ultimately, one of the things I would say to answer your question is that crypto is really exciting, right? We have an incredible, industry that's based around like community. It's based around incentives. Tokens are these really interesting kind of like incentive products, but they also are now kind of being equivalent with equity, because obviously we see like, buybacks has been a very strong meta in the past 12, 24 months. And there's been some really exciting companies that have come out in the past year or so. Like I think Pump.fun, and for full disclosure, I'm an investor there, is really exciting. Not because I think meme coins are the killer app for crypto, but because I think creator economies and creator markets are ripe for disruption. I think we've seen incredible creator economy built around YouTube and now around Instagram and TikTok, but most recently Twitch and Kick, and I think like they are very interesting platforms but they're still kind of based around ads, right? It's an ad-based model, and what the Pump.fun team created is a new type of attention market with a token, and I think that in the future, we are probably going to walk into a world 2 years from now, where AI creators are more successful than you, Kyle. People that aren't real. Maybe you actually have your own, kind of team of AI creators, because you can A/B test them across the world, different time zones, different audience profiles. You might find something that really sticks, right? Yeah. And being able to kind of trade on their kind of celebrity or their kind of attention kind of resonance is really interesting, and I think we're seeing part of that manifested in the prediction markets with Kalshi and Polymarket as well, and that's really exciting for me. I think that's really kind of novel use cases that are really kind of causing a lot of conversation globally, and a lot of interesting experimentation. But putting that aside, I think we haven't seen enough innovation in crypto. It's really a lot of the same kind of like copy and paste. perps, dexes, borrow lending. Obviously, stablecoins have got great product market fit, but we need new things, new experiences. And, that's why I'm so interested in what can be built on top of SUI. I think that we haven't really, explored just how novel this object-oriented model can be. And I think that there are great things in the pipeline in the SUI Foundation, with the Miston Labs team and other teams that I've met in the past 3 months. They're going to execute on something pretty exciting. Some people are really interested in gaming. Other people are very interested in AI and agents. I think, for me, I just want to connect with super talented builders in the ecosystem, try and help and champion them and support them in whatever way I can through SUIG or through Caratage. And really, encourage people to build. I think that SUI has got one of the fastest growing developer ecosystems, and that's amazing. But ultimately, we need more developers. That's what the blockchain industry needs. And so I'm just on the hunt for, really talented innovators that want to try and build this, agentic future. And that's definitely like a personal, focus of mine. Yeah. But it's not like a singular focus. We're very open to different ideas. We don't just invest in crypto at Caratage. We invest in iGaming, in defense and verticalized AI applications. We've got a very broad portfolio with some companies that have gone public on the stock market, right through to kind of tokens that have achieved multi-billion-dollar network valuation. So we're very open to every type of entrepreneur. And I think at the moment I would just encourage people to reach out to me if they want to discuss anything interesting, and I'll happily talk to them about what I think needs to be built.
Yeah. And how would they do that?
You can reach out to me on Twitter. I'll give you my kind of Twitter handle, Kyle. You can kind of put it in the show notes, maybe. Okay. Also on LinkedIn, and I'm often at the kind of the ecosystem events. So please tap me on the shoulder and have a chat if you see me. And
maybe here's some advice too, because I haven't actually said it on the show, or maybe I have to my listeners. But what should they say what should they include in the message? Because some people are just going to reply, "Hey, bro." And you're going to be like, okay, next. Like when they write you a message and they seriously think they have something interesting and they want you to respond, should they tell you a little bit about what their idea is? Should they say that they heard you on Kyle's show? Or like, what would it get, to make sure that you don't perceive it as spam? Like, what should they include in the message to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most exciting kind of like cold outreach you can get is someone that kind of gives a video recording of themselves speaking and also a recording of the product that they've built. That way you can see what you're getting into within 5 minutes. I mean, nothing's better than that.
Yeah, that's great. Great idea. All right, guys, now real quick, just a quick break. For years, I only knew how to make money while the market pumped. But now that's changed. So that's why I partnered with Blowfin, a global exchange with low fees and every trading pair you could want all in one place. So if you're looking for a great exchange to make your trades, just click my affiliate link down in the description below and get started today. Go check out that promotion as well. And guys, just so you know, full disclaimer, if you use any of my affiliate links below, I may be receiving a small commission from my partners. Plus, you'll be supporting the channel at no added cost to you, which would be really appreciated. So again, thanks to the amazing channel sponsors. I use them myself and believe in them. And now back to the show. I want to talk about one more kind of obscure thing because of your experience in AI. And because I think it's just like, it's something that each and every one of us should be thinking about. I know a lot of us, many of us don't have the actual independent power to do anything about the development of these LLMs and robotics and things like that. But maybe we have some ability to kind of assess how we're feeling about the future. And, maybe it can enable us who don't feel good about it to try to take some sort of preventative plan or whatever. But, what I'm talking about is essentially the outcome of super intelligence and the ability for us to make sure when that super intelligence goes live, that it is aligned with human ideals and, treats us as collaborators, or just lets us run in the wild like we always have, or as humanity's greatest friend and does everything for us and puts us in a post-scarcity world, which just means like a world of abundance. Or, they somehow aren't aligned and, they slaughter all of us for one reason or another. But I guess just for one would be fun to hear your answer on, you think, on the outcome of utopia or doom. And then the other one is, I'm just curious, if we make it to this post-scarcity world, what the economic model might look there. And I know this could take up an entire whole nother discussion, but let's try to keep it short. But I have been thinking about this because I learned about this, post-scarcity, or some call it the abundance, age, where the cost of manufacturing production of everything becomes close to zero because, this AI and superintelligence helps us harness the sun's energy. We've invented fission. We have vertical farming that, and we have machines that build other machines and figure out ways to improve efficiency. So like the idea of hunger no longer exists anymore, right? We could prefab homes for very cheap and provide homes for, all the humans on the planet. Everything that we need on the hierarchy of needs is taken care of for us. And then, and if it is a good scenario where like we coexist alongside these machines, I've heard Elon talk about, he believes it won't be UBI, it'll be universally high income. And I'm just a bit confused or curious to hear your thoughts on, I don't even know if you've thought about it, but like what kind of economy do we have in that environment? And would blockchain be even more relevant then, or do you think that they wouldn't be used? Would money matter anymore? Like, do you have any idea about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I haven't listened to the recent kind of Elon kind of all-in pods, but I will.
It's super high level when he says,
yeah,
oh, it's better than UBI. It's universal high income, and that there was nothing that he said that gave any logic or reasoning to how we achieve that, right? And it just got me thinking. I'm like, well, if everything becomes 100 or 1,000x cheaper, then you could still get what today we'd call UBI. Maybe it's $1,000 a month, and like, because everything else is taken care of for you, that's just like spending cash in a world where things don't really cost very much. So that could be considered universal high income. But yeah, it got me thinking about this whole thing, and I'm just curious with your experience and history in AI and thinking about it so often.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think about it like somewhat differently, because ultimately our ability as humans, at least from what I've seen in my career, including myself, just to be clear, I put myself in that camp as well a little bit, is we tend to find it difficult to really kind of see exponential change and exponential outcomes,
Yeah.
and the interesting thing is going from IBM's Deep Blue beating Gary Kasparov right through to DeepMind with AlphaGo, right through to where we are now with ChatGPT. The next kind of logical achievement on that curve is hard to actually predict, but I would kind of maybe suggest some that could happen. One is that these LLMs will be able to really solve quantum mathematics and new types of kind of mathematical theorems and challenges that we just haven't seen yet. I think we live in a very different world when that happens. I'm quite interested in listening to, there's a British physicist called Brian Cox. I listened to many of his kind of lectures and podcasts over the years, and thinking about space and kind of identifying and exploring these new kind of solar systems and galaxies, totally, yeah. Which is just so kind of mind-bogglingly infinite. We have trillions of galaxies potentially, or the space is infinite and expanding,
Yes.
and being able to kind of understand that through the power of these LLMs is really fascinating. And then we have this kind of big elephant in the room, which is quantum computing. Some people say it's 5 years away. Some people say it's 10 years away. We actually we bought into a quantum fund we bought half the GP of a quantum fund about 3 years ago. 3 years ago now. So we have a really interesting quantum portfolio, and I've been super fascinated learning about that and what it can do for drug discovery. Also how it's pretty much like a defense investment because it's so highly prioritized and protected by governments and nation states in terms of who you can actually contract to. A lot of the same kind of 5 hours restrictions you see in defense kind of applied to quantum. And so, in that world where, we have abundant, and also, people think that energy costs will come down in the next few years, that we'll be able to harness solar in a better way. Like if energy goes, down, like 5x from here, intelligence goes up 100x. I don't know what anyone will be doing, to be honest. It's kind of hard, but what I do think is that it's probably likely that and it's a risk. Many people have spoken about this, from Paul Tudor Jones to others, that the gap of inequality just is dramatic, right? So, that's a very, very complex kind of social and philosophical issue to solve. But I think rather than pontificate about it now, I'd rather maybe deal with it once it occurs. That's a better thing for me to think through. But I really do believe that we are. We're just on the cusp of what's to come with these thinking machines. Honestly, I think there's a big debate in these kind of like in literature and writing. It's like are machines intelligent? Do they have consciousness? Do we have singularity? There's this really. I listened to an interesting interview with Mustafa Sulaiman, who is one of the co-founders of DeepMind and now heads Microsoft's AI initiatives. I think he kind of like talked about how, well, if a system can kind of like mimic intelligence, right? But it's not thinking, but it just gives you all of the pattern matching that looks like thought. Yeah. Does it really matter? Because they've worked out how to imitate what intelligence as you think it is. Like what is intelligence? Intelligence is just a way that we like learn, and like often learning is through observation and behavioral traits, right? I'm shaped by the environment around me and from the information that I receive. So you can start getting down this philosophical kind of bandwagon here, but I think it's it's very, very it's very exciting, and it's very, for sure, kind of scary. Where I think artificial intelligence can go if it doesn't have some guardrails, and I think the same is true for these like humanoid robots, right? I mean, if you want like your grandma to be looked after by a robot carer, you want to make sure that it's not going to kill her, right? So like, how are you going to do that? And I think like you need
all my work too.
You need like a lot of these kind of tools that will kind of maintain kind of security, guardrails, verifiability, encryption, all these things. That's why I think that blockchain and like technology companies like Miston Labs and the SUI ecosystem are uniquely placed to like solve for some of these use cases. That's not to say that all AI is going to run on blockchain. Far from it. I don't think that's necessary. But I do think for some of the use cases we've talked through here today, it's actually paramount. It's of paramount importance that you have these kind of agents and these kind of robotic innovations be accessed and be controlled through kind of cryptographic initiatives.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. I just watched earlier today some information about. Have you heard about Google Suncatcher?
No.
So Google just announced, I don't know when they're going to roll it out, Suncatcher, which is essentially a constellation of satellites that have massive solar arrays on there, and they'll work in a constellation to essentially like literally beam back that 24/7 unobstructed light. Normally solar panels on Earth, they got hit by the diluted by the atmosphere, and then clouds and distance and all everything that we deal with on Earth. But if you have them out in space and they're in the right zone where they get 24 hours of daylight, and you have a whole constellation of them beaming back all the energy back to some central point on Earth, that would be a very efficient way to use solar. And so they're working on this. And then, I mean, there's just so much development happening in nuclear as well. And then I think a little bit further down the line, maybe someone will figure out fission not too long. So I think the power situation is being dealt with, right? Like within the next 10 years, we're going to have a lot of power.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, but on that point, it's still like, and I still, I agree. Like, and that's why I said before, we could maybe energy goes down 5x or 10x and intelligence goes up 100x. Could be energy goes down 100x as well. But right now, like energy is, power.
Yes.
Power in the sense of like, economic and kind of military power, I guess, as well. And what's that power used for? It's used for AI. Like AI is like literally the end game.
Yep.
AI is power. Power is money, and power is geopolitics, and like all routes like lead to AI. That's why I think it's a very interesting place for us as an industry to innovate on and to collaborate on.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything within the SUI ecosystem that's happening right now that we haven't talked about that gets you super excited, or anywhere else in your portfolio, or anything, just for kind of to close it out? I'm just curious if we miss, if you haven't got to talk about something that you think is fascinating.
No, I think, we've got a very, diverse portfolio of companies, a heritage that, that are outside of SUI as well. And we've got some great teams, great founders that are at the early stage of their journey. Some are more mature, and I think that I could be here for another 60 minutes if I talk through everyone. But I think I've been very excited at the growth of the SUI ecosystem. I think that it was nice to see Momentum had a great launch. I think it was yesterday, so congratulations to that team. We've been speaking to all of the DeFi ecosystem founders, from Momentum to Bluefin to Navi to SUILend, to the gaming guys like Double Up, and just really listening to how we can help them and trying to support them in the best way. And then outside of SUI, there's some great teams we've backed, from Plasma to Dare Markets to Pump.Fun and many others. So yeah, it's a cool time. I think the year ahead is, I think, going to have a lot of companies building in the institutional space. I think that 2025 was a big unlock. As I mentioned earlier, I think it will be a landmark year where Wall Street was finally open to crypto, and I think for that reason you're going to see many other companies that are building kind of institutional enterprise grade products.
Yep.
One company that we've invested in, which is extremely exciting, is Talos. Which is, really like a one-stop shop for kind of trading infrastructure. And I think that's a very, very exciting team, and led by a great CEO, Anton. So there's a number of companies that I'm very excited about at the moment.
Cool. Well, Steve, thanks for coming on. Hopefully we can do this again soon. There's a lot more to discuss, and but I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
I'll also link all your links down in the description below for anyone who wants to go check out more.
Yeah, that'd be great. Look forward to hearing from anyone who wants to reach out.